Hi, I'm Lisa Smith from the Healthcare Initiative at the William Davidson Institute, and today I'm here with Simon Barry, founder and CEO of ColaLife. Simon, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for seeing me.
So for those of us that are, or those in the audience that may be less familiar with the ColaLife model, can you provide us with a bit of background?
Well, the short version is that Coca-Cola seems to get everywhere in the world, but life-saving medicines don't. So is there something we can learn from that? And what ColaLife has done is it's tried to study, or has studied, the Coca-Cola distribution system in great detail and applied the same techniques to the distribution of an essential medicine. And the medicine that we've chosen is ORS and zinc, which is the WHO, UNICEF recommended treatment for diarrhea.
And so what inspired you to start ColaLife initially, and why is this initiative so important to you?
Well, it started way back actually in the late 80s when I was working on the British Aid programme in northeast Zambia. I'm not a health professional, I know nothing about logistics, but I just noticed that I could get a Coca-Cola pretty much anywhere I went, and then I became aware that 20% of children died before their 5th birthday. And then digging a bit deeper, I found out that actually the second biggest killer was diarrhea, which is such an easily treatable illness.
And you mentioned the products included in the ColaLife package are ORS and zinc. And so those were identified because diarrheal disease burden is so high in Zambia, or what was the process behind choosing those products?
Well, no, the reason we chose ORS and zinc is that it addresses the second biggest killer, and they are, generally speaking, over-the-counter medicines. And even if they're not, from a regulatory point of view, they could be. Obviously, there are other issues in child health, but they're a bit more complicated. Like pneumonia, for example, is the one that just pips diarrhea in terms of its importance, but only just. And things like malaria and HIV are also more complicated than diarrhea. So we chose ORS and zinc because it shares so many similarities with Coca-Cola. It's stable at ambient temperatures, it's not dangerous. In fact, this is probably less dangerous than Coca-Cola actually, and could be sold from the same places as other consumable goods. And we're not just talking about Coca-Cola here, we're talking about cooking oil, sugar, salt, the sort of things that people need on a day-to-day basis. So going through those same channels, ORS and zinc can go through those same channels. Yeah.
So some have characterized the ORS and zinc market as being stuck in a cycle of poor uptake due to low supply and low demand. Low supply leading to limited demand because the products aren't available, and limited demand leading to poor supply because people are not invested in stocking the product because there's poor demand. How have you thought about addressing issues of demand? I know supply is a central feature of the design of this model. And so how have you thought about pairing that with appropriate demand for the products?
Well, this is interesting because this is, in fact, one of the key learning points from working with Coca-Cola. The first thing we did is we spoke to mothers about the issues they faced treating diarrhea in the home. And either this has never been done before, or it's been done very badly. Because when we spoke to women, things came across like they have great difficulty dealing with the standard issue 1 litre ORS sachet. And when we looked into, well, why are they being given this 1 litre sachet? The reason they're being given the 1 litre sachet is because that's what the health centres have. And why do the health centres have 1 litre sachets? Because it's actually quite handy when you're in a health centre with 5 children lined up with diarrhea to mix up the ORS a litre at a time. In the home, it's verging on the ridiculous, because if you follow the instructions on a litre sachet, you make a litre. Obviously, most women don't know what a litre is, and even if they do, they don't have anything of that size, but let's assume that they do. So they mix up the litre correctly. They then give it to the child, and the child will drink about 400 mils in a 24-hour period. After 24 hours, you're supposed to throw away the ORS you don't use. So you actually end up throwing away 600 mils, using 400 mils. Now, from a Western perspective, that's a terrible waste of ORS. From an African woman's perspective, it's a terrible waste of water. Bearing in mind this has to be brought to the house and often over very long distances. So the whole process is pretty ludicrous, actually. So when you speak to women, then you adapt your product to meet their needs. And not to meet their needs, but to give them something they actually want. And that's what Coca-Cola do, of course. Coca-Cola don't sit in Atlanta saying, these people need this stuff, let's get it to them. They work out what people want. And that is the basis of their distribution system. If people want something and a profit can be made getting it to them, it gets there. Another thing you'll notice when you go into African villages is you'll never see a Coca-Cola truck. You'll see the product, but you won't see a Coca-Cola truck. That's because they don't go there. The product gets pulled into the villages because people want it, and the retailers there can make a profit by selling it to them. And that's exactly the approach we've taken with the product that we've developed. So we've gone down from not litre sachets, but 200 ml sachets. We've put it in a package that is highly desirable, aspirational. It's not in a cardboard box that falls to pieces. It's not litre sachets, which they don't know how to deal with. It's tailored to their needs. And I can show you, is it appropriate to show you the thing now? This is the scale-up version of the product. We're moving away from the kit that fitted between the crates, which we learnt so much from. But actually, when we did the trial, only 4% of retailers put the kit in crates. So, you know, the initial inspiration was just that. It actually, when we did the thing in practice, the fact that it fitted in crates was almost irrelevant. What was relevant was the fact that it looked nice, people wanted it, they could afford it, and the retailers could make a profit from selling it to them. So this is a development of the original kit. It has all the same features. So it's the measuring device, there's a line there to show you how much water you need to use. It's the mixing device, and it's the cup. It's made from a standard pre-form, which makes any plastic jar, but it's blown into our own mould. The tamper evidencing is in that ring, so when you take it off, it's obvious that it's now been opened. And inside we have what WHO and UNICEF recommend, which is ORS and zinc. And we've also added soap, because we want to have a device for talking about prevention as well as treatment. And here's the instructions, which are we've gone away from 3 languages because people don't, whether they speak the local language, they don't necessarily read it or write it. So we've gone back to very simple diagrams on how to use the ORS, how to use the zinc. But this is how you use the ORS. You just fill to the line. And you can pretty much, you can pretty much do this in the dark. 200 ml sachets, you just take the top off. Again, you don't have to worry about the quantity, you just put the whole lot in. If the sick child is watching at this point, it's good because they get really, really interested. And you know, if you've got a sick child and they want to take the medicine, that's half the battle. You put the lid on, back on, and you shake it up, and there you have perfectly mixed ORS. No flies, no dirt. These indents here are so a child can actually hold it. If they're well enough. And then cheers. And then you put the lid back on. And of course there'll be no wastage there. That'll just be drunk, and then as soon as that's drunk, you make up some more. So that's the product.
And so in designing the smaller sachets for ORS, did you have to partner with a specific manufacturer to do the product at that specification, since the larger packs are so much more common?
Yes, well we did, and in fact when we started the trial we had a very limited period of time, we had a very limited budget, and so we were just going to take off the shelf already approved components, already approved ORS, already approved zinc. But we did this focus group work with these women, and this message came over so strong that we would have been embarrassed, frankly, to give them litre sachets. So we rapidly went to a local manufacturer that was producing the ORS, and we said, can you make small sachets? And after a little bit of toing and froing, they said yes. And there's an interesting story to that too, because the artwork for this was done on my computer, and I nearly gave up. I was doing this, and it was so small
to fit all the information.
This is ridiculous. And I was on the verge of giving up. Anyway, we persevered. And do you know, now I pick up this sachet, and I pick up a litre sachet, and it's this one that looks ridiculous. You know, this is the quantity that's required for the treatment of. So they did it. We were able to get a very rapid approval because the content had already been approved. It was just a smaller package. So that worked okay.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's a common problem that you hear about. ORS has been on the market for many years, and yet uptake remains relatively low in many contexts. And so a product modification like that seems like a very smart way to kind of start again and begin with not only a new business model, but also...
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, and we, in our trial areas, and in fact, this remained the case in our comparator districts, the percentage of children that were receiving this decade-old recommendation of ORS and zinc was less than 1%.
Right.
Within 6 months of this being available in shops, it was 40%, and after 12 months, it was 45%.